The Tiny Seed by Carle. It is autumn. A strong wind is blowing. It blows flower seeds high in the air and carries them far across the land. One of the seeds is tiny, smaller than any of the others. Will it be able to keep up with the others? And where are they all going? One of the seeds flies higher than the others. Up, up it goes. It flies too high, and the sun's hot rays burn it up. But the tiny seed sails on with the others. Another seed lands on a tall and icy mountain. The ice never melts, and the seed cannot grow. The rest of the seeds fly on, but the tiny seed does not go as fast as the others. Now they fly over the ocean. One seed falls into the water and drowns. The others sail on with the wind. But the tiny seed does not go as high as the others. One seed drifts down onto the desert. It is hot and dry, and the seed cannot grow. Now the tiny seed is flying very low, but the wind pushes it on with the others. Finally, the wind stops, and the seeds fall gently down on the ground. A bird comes by and eats one seed. The tiny seed is not eaten. It is so small that the bird does not see it. Now it is winter. After their long trip, the seeds settle down. They look just as if they are going to sleep in the earth. Snow falls and covers them like a soft white blanket. A hungry mouse that also lives in the ground eats a seed for his lunch. But the tiny seed lies very still, and the mouse does not see it. Now it is spring. After a few months, the snow has melted. It is really spring. Birds fly by. The sun shines. Rain falls. The seeds grow so round and full. They start to burst open a little. Now they are not seeds anymore. They are plants. First, they send roots down into the earth. Then their little stems and leaves begin to grow up toward the sun and air. There is another plant that grows much faster than the new little plants. It is a big, fat weed. And it takes all the sunlight and the rain away from one of the small new plants. And that little plant dies. The tiny seed hasn't begun to grow yet. It will be too late. Hurry! But finally, it too starts to grow into a plant. The warm weather also brings the children out to play. They too have been waiting for the sun and springtime. One child doesn't see the plants as he runs along, and oh, he breaks one. Now it cannot grow anymore. The tiny plant that grew from the tiny seed is growing fast. But its neighbor grows even faster. Before the tiny plant has 3 leaves, the other plant has 7. And look, a bud. And now even a flower. But what is happening? First, there are footsteps. Then a shadow looms over them. Then a hand reaches down and breaks off the flower. A boy has picked the flower to give to a friend. It is summer. Now the tiny plant from the tiny seed is all alone. It grows on and on. It doesn't stop. The sun shines on it, and the rain waters it. It has many leaves. It grows taller and taller. It is taller than the people. It is taller than the trees. It is taller than the houses. And now a flower grows on it. People come from far and near to look at this flower. It is the tallest flower they have ever seen. It is a giant flower. All summer long, the birds and bees and butterflies come visiting. They have never seen such a big and beautiful flower. Now it is autumn again. The days grow shorter. The nights grow cooler. And the wind carries yellow and red leaves past the flower. Some petals drop from the giant flower, and they sail along with the bright leaves over the land and down to the ground. The wind blows harder. The flower has lost almost all of its petals. It sways and bends away from the wind, but the wind grows stronger and shakes the flower. Once more the wind shakes the flower, and this time the flower's seed pod opens. Out come many tiny seeds that quickly sail far away on the wind.
Did you enjoy the story, The Tiny Seed? Well, I did. And we're going to talk about the story now. I have some important things to talk to you about. Okay, we're going to retell this story. And when we retell the story, we have some important things we need to think about. We have characters. Who were they? Right? That means who was in the story. We have the setting. That means where and or when did the story happen or take place. We have the beginning of the story, what happened first. We have the middle of the story, what happened next. And we have the end of the story, what happened last. Okay, so I want you to be thinking about the tiny seed because we're going to go over all of these parts right now. Okay. There are 2 pages that are that we sent out to you. Okay, so one of them is a story map, and I'm going to talk about that one, and the other one is the sequencing one with the beginning, middle, and end parts to it. I'm going to go over the story map first. Okay, so on this story map, we have the space for the title, the tiny seed. We have the main character, a line to write who that was, and a picture to illustrate the setting, where did the story happen, write that down and illustrate, and we have 3 boxes, one for beginning, one for middle, and one for end. Okay, now take a look at mine, my example. I wrote my name, put the date, all those important things. I wrote the title, The Tiny Seed. Okay, the main character in the tiny seed was, what do you think? It was all about that tiny seed, wasn't it? So I wrote down the tiny seed. It was about the tiny seed. The seed was the main character, was the character. The other seeds were characters too, but it was all about the tiny one. And here's a little illustration for that. Where was the setting? Where did the story take place? Outside. And here's a picture of one of the beginning scenes when the wind was beginning to blow, and remember the seeds took off, right? That's one of the pictures from the story. You can draw another one because the setting was outside, so any one of the outside scenes would work for that. Here in the beginning box, I wrote the wind blew, a sentence to match my picture. You can do that too. And I drew a picture of the wind blowing. Can you see that? And all the seeds are being carried away in the air. My middle picture is showing where the weed ended up making one of the seeds die. And I wrote a sentence that says, a weed kills a seed, because it blocked the sun and the little seed couldn't get what it needed to grow. And the roots got choked out. In my last picture, I drew the picture of the tiny seed when it finally did grow, and it grew very well, right? Wouldn't you say? I did not write a sentence, but what could I have written? Could I have written, the tiny seed grew into a flower? What would you have written? If you don't have a printer to print this out, you can take a blank piece of paper, draw 3 boxes, okay? And on your 3 boxes, draw the beginning, middle, and end, right? If you can write a sentence to go with your illustration, that would be wonderful. And I would say do it, okay? We always want you to practice writing. Now there's another paper that is in the resources, and it's this one. Let's take a look at my example. Okay, the tiny seed. First, do you remember what happened? This is what I wrote. All the seeds were blown in the air, right? Next, what happened? Some seeds fell in the, and I had to sound this word out, like you will have to sound out a lot of words that you spell. Okay, so here it is. Ocean. Some seeds fell in the ocean. I drew a line here because I wanted to say I wanted to write down 2 different sentences. So my other sentence says, one seed was eaten by a bird. Then I drew a line because I wasn't sure if I wanted 2 sentences, but then I counted how many words I wanted in my sentence, and I wrote those lines for each word first, and then I went back and wrote on them. It says, then the little seed began to grow. Okay, if you're thinking, Miss Chapman, then? You didn't say then. when you're talking about the different parts of the story, then happens to be part of the middle leading into the end, okay? So remember the little seed began to grow, right, towards the, closer to the end. And then last, the tiny seed, I had to sound this one out, grew into a big, beautiful flower. The tiny seed grew into a big, beautiful flower. Now, if you're thinking, that was so much fun, I want to do something else with this, I have an idea for you. If you have a blank piece of paper, grab it, or if you want to use the back of one of these, go ahead and split your paper in half like your journal looks. Draw a beautiful picture from the story, maybe your favorite part, and then write as many sentences as you can about your illustration. Remember to start with a capital letter. Use your finger spaces, right? Keep all of your letters on the line that you draw and make them same length, same height, and your punctuation to show where the sentence ends so that we know a new sentence is starting. I know these are going to be good. Thank you for thinking on that story with me. Keep practicing, keep reading. See you next time.